age-appropriate transportation services for children, which at a minimum shall include transportation services for children experiencing homelessness and children in foster care. H. Conducting or updating the state's statewide needs assessment used for purposes of paragraph 6b. 2. 5. Lead agency. The governor of a state desiring to receive a payment under this subsection shall designate a state lead agency, such as a state agency or joint interagency office, for the administration of the Universal Preschool Services Program under this section. 6. State plan. In order to be eligible for payments under this section, the governor of a state shall submit a state plan for universal, high-quality, free, inclusive, and mixed delivery preschool services to the Secretary for approval at such time, in such manner, and containing such information as the Secretary, in collaboration with the Secretary of Education, may require. Such plan shall include each of the following: a. A certification that the state has in place developmentally appropriate, evidence-based preschool standards that, at a minimum, are as rigorous as the standards specified in subparagraph b of Section 641A, 1 of the Head Start Act, 42 U.S.C. 9836A, 1, and include program standards for class sizes and ratios. b. A certification that the state will prioritize the establishment and expansion of universal, high-quality, free, inclusive, and mixed delivery preschool services in high-need communities, as identified by the state, including a description of which high-need communities the state will prioritize for that establishment and expansion within and across those communities. Two. A description of how the state determined which communities are high-need communities, including how the state used a research-based methodology, approved by the Secretary, to identify and serve such communities, as determined by the rate of poverty among eligible children in the community. Two. Rates of access to high-quality preschool within the community, including, as applicable, rates of disparities for underserved or vulnerable populations as identified through a periodic needs assessment conducted through the Preschool Development Grants Program. Under Section 9212 of the Every Student Succeeds Act, 42 U.S.C. (9831) Note, as applicable, or through another such statewide needs assessment, and 3. Other indicators of community need as required by the Secretary, and 3. An assurance that the state will distribute funding for such preschool services under this section within such a high need community so that a majority of children in the community are offered such preschool services before the state establishes and expands free preschool services in communities with lower levels of need. C. As applicable, a description of how the state plans to use funding provided under this section to ensure that existing, as of the date of submission of the state plan, publicly funded preschool programs in the state meet the requirements of this section for a preschool program. D. A certification that the state will, in establishing and operating the program of preschool services supported under this section, support a mixed delivery preschool system, including a certification that the state will facilitate the participation in the system of Head Start programs and programs offered by other eligible providers, including providers of licensed family childcare. E. An assurance that the state will use funding provided under this section to ensure children with disabilities have access to and participate in inclusive preschool programs consistent with provisions in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, including an assurance that the state will offer inclusive programming that supports the least restrictive environment. Requirements in Section 619 of the Individuals with Disabilities Act for all eligible children who are children with disabilities. F. A certification that the state will support the continuous quality improvement of programs providing preschool services under this section, including support through technical assistance, monitoring, and research. G. A certification that the state will ensure a highly qualified early childhood workforce to support the requirements of this section. H. A description of how the state will coordinate the state's preschool standards described in subparagraph A with other early learning standards within the state. I. A description of how the state will coordinate services and funding provided under this section with services and funding for other federal, state, and local child care and early childhood development programs. 2. At the option of an Indian tribe or tribal organization in the state, collaborate and coordinate services and funding with such Indian tribe or tribal organization. 3. Partner with Head Start agencies to ensure the full utilization of Head Start programs within the state. 4. Collaborate with entities carrying out programs under Section 619 or Part C of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act to support inclusive preschool programs, and v. Improve transitions of children from early childhood education to elementary school. J. An assurance that the state will partner with not less than one institution of higher education to facilitate degree attainment for staff of preschool programs. K. An assurance that the state will ensure all preschool services in the state funded under this section will be I. Universally available to all children in the state without any additional eligibility requirements, and 2. Be high quality, free, and inclusive, 2. By not later than 1 year after receiving such funding, meet the state's preschool education standards described in subparagraph A. Three. Offer programming that meets the duration requirements of at least 1,020 annual hours in the program performance standards applicable to Head Start programs described in Section 641A of the Head Start Act, 42 U.S.C. (9836A) 4. Adopt policies and practices to conduct outreach and provide expedited enrollment, including prioritization, to I. Children experiencing homelessness, 2. Children in foster care or kinship care, 3. Children in families who are engaged in migrant or seasonal agricultural labor, 4. Children with disabilities, including children served under Part C of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act who are an eligible child under Section 101A, 3 of this Act. And v. Dual language learners, v. Provides salaries, and sets salary schedules, for staff that are equivalent to salaries of elementary school staff with similar credentials and experience. 6. At a minimum, provide a living wage for all staff of such providers. And 7. Require educational